I wanted to, at this point, because it was mentioned in that first text about Kali Yuga, to refresh people's minds about what that means and what is the atmosphere of the time we're living in. And I'm going to read from the Bhagavad-gita, chapter 8, verse 17, and this is the purport by Bhaktivedanta Swami. The duration of the material universe is limited. It is manifested in cycles of kalpas. Kalpa is a day of Brahma, and one day of Brahma consists of 1,000 cycles of 4 yugas or ages: Satya, Treta, Dvarpa, and Kali. The cycle of Satya is characterized by virtue, wisdom, and religion, there being practically no ignorance and vice, and the yuga lasts 1,728,000 years. In the Treta Yuga, vice is introduced, and this yuga lasts 1,296,000 years. In the Dvarpa Yuga, there is an even greater decline in virtue and religion, vice increasing, and this yuga lasts 864,000 years. And finally, in Kali Yuga, the yuga that we have now been experiencing over the past 5,000 years, there is an abundance of strife, ignorance, irreligion, and vice, true virtue being practically non-existent. And this yuga lasts 432,000 years. In Kali Yuga, vice increases to such a point that at the termination of the yuga, the Supreme Lord himself appears as the Kalki avatar, vanquishes the demons, saves his devotees, and commences another Satya Yuga. Then the process is set rolling again. These 4 yugas, rotating 1,000 times, comprise one day of Brahma, the Creator God, and the same number comprise one night. Brahma lives 100 of such years and then dies. These 100 years, by Earth calculation, total to 311 trillion and 40 million Earth years. By these calculations, the life of Brahma seems fantastic and interminable, but from the viewpoint of eternity, it is as brief as a lightning flash. In the causal ocean, there are innumerable Brahmas rising and disappearing like bubbles in the Atlantic. Brahma and his creation are all parts of the material universe, and therefore they're in constant flux. So we can understand from this one thing, that according to the Vedic perspective, which is an authorized and reliable source of ancient wisdom, that this age that we are residing in, Kali Yuga, lasts for 432,000 years, of which we've only passed through 5,000. So you can take it from me and take it from the Vedic perspective that the world is not ending in 2012. Now, all this is just hyped up nonsense. And we will be going on, and even at the end of Kali Yuga, the material creation is actually eternal. It rotates in cycles of creation, maintenance, and annihilation. But then another cycle starts of creation, maintenance, and annihilation. So even though at a certain point in the material universe, and there's partial devastations at the end of yuga cycles, and other longer time cycles, but there's always a rebirth, just as we experience on a fractal level here on planet Earth, that we go through spring, summer, fall, and then the devastation of winter. But then the rebirth of spring comes again, and the cycle rotates again. Spring, summer, fall, the devastation of winter, then the rebirth. So we can understand that the same thing is going on the cosmic scale. So currently, we're residing within the winter of the yugas, the Kali Yuga. It will be going on for another 427,000 years, and at that time, there is actually a vision of, which is very much like Revelation. So Revelation may be referring to a time, the book of Revelation in the Bible may be referring to a time that is 427,000 years from now. There is a descent of an avatar or a Messiah rectifies the entire universal situation. So all the apocalyptic people and all the doomsday people and all the 2012 people that say it's at hand and it's very soon and the world is ending and prepare and all, well, we should always be prepared, because we have to experience our own devastation and our own annihilation at the time of death. And according to the Vedic literatures, we should be prepared for that. Our consciousness should be elevated. We should have practiced good and sound transcendental works throughout our life. whether the world ends in 2012 or sometime in the future, if there's some type of devastation, things will be set rolling again in a spring rejuvenation of the seasons of the yugas. And as will we. The time of death for us is not the end. It's merely the end of this physical body, just as we experience with the analogy of the car and driver, that the body is like the car, and the soul within the body is like the driver, which animates the vehicle. So this body is merely a vehicle for the soul. The soul resides within the heart. That's where the electrical energy comes from to keep the heart pumping. The soul is transcendental, actually, to this body. And at the time of death, just as we see that when a person loses their car, or the car becomes old, or the car becomes in some accident and can no longer be used, that the person gets another car. So in the same way, after death, we are furnished with another vehicle. Now, whether this the type of vehicle that we get, whether it will be one like this, which is subjected to ignorance, which is subjected to anxiety, which is subjected to so many problems of the material atmosphere, or whether it will be a spiritual, transcendental body full of eternity, bliss, and knowledge, which reflects our true nature as part and parcel of the Supreme Whole. This we can determine within this lifetime by the activities that we carry out, by the types of knowledge that we seek out, by the way we treat other living entities, whether we treat them cruel or with compassion. All these things factor into it's like a bank account. And the more your bank account, the better car that you'll be able to purchase. And ultimately, we can transcend all these material bodies that are full of suffering and regain our true nature, our original nature, our spiritual nature, because we are spiritual by nature, as part and parcel of the Supreme Whole. Go back to Godhead. Enjoy pleasure pastimes of transcendence. It's not residing within some white light for eternity. There's all relationship, all personality, all pleasure, all knowing, all feeling, all transcendental emotion is there. So we will not be going into a void when we experience our true perfected nature. Rather, it will be billions of times more than anything we can ever imagine as far as pleasure, love, fearlessness, joy. So let's look at a couple more things about how we can attain this state. So we've determined that several things through the Vedic perspective, that we're living not in the greatest age and that there's a lot of problems. But this age, just as in winter, we can counteract winter by building a nice fire in the fireplace to keep warm, by wearing a nice coat outside and hat to keep warm. So the effects of this age can also be turned back. And we're exploring that right now. What are some of the primary things that we can do to turn back the vicious nature of this age? Further along in the purport, this is from the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 6, Verse 12, the purport by Bhaktivedanta Swami. However, as indicated here, by digging for water, even in the desert, we can produce food grains. When we produce food grains and vegetables, we can give protection to the cows. While giving protection to the cows, we can draw from them abundant quantities of milk. And by getting enough milk and combining it with food grains and vegetables, we can prepare hundreds of nectarian foods. We can happily eat this food and thus avoid industrial enterprises and joblessness. So here's a direct solution. If people are concerned about unemployment, if they're concerned about the deindustrialization of America, we should actually understand that here's the Vedic perspective solution to that. We produce food grains and vegetables. We get back to the agricultural roots of America, which is what this country was founded on, but not in some exploitive way, in higher knowledge and full understanding that this is a path to leading to higher transcendence. We get back to our agricultural roots. We produce food grains and vegetables. Then we give protection to the cows. Rather than slaughtering the cows, we give them protection. While giving protection to the cows, we draw from them abundant quantities of milk. That's pure milk. That's good for you. That's good for your brain. That can prolong your life. That helps your children to grow up strong and healthy, with full knowledge, because their brain is functioning in a proper way. By getting enough milk and combining it with food, grains, and vegetables, we can prepare hundreds of nectarian foods. Because after all, that's the basic need of human life, is that we need to eat. We need some shelter. And the cow and the bull can help us with these things. And rather than huge, gigantic industrial enterprises which are exploiting people and creating one problem after another, creating unemployment and joblessness according to their whim, that if we would stop depending on someone other than ourselves, get back to growing food. Even in the city, you can grow food even on the tiniest bit of land. I see that in New York City. There's a big movement in Brooklyn and Manhattan with people growing small gardens. All vacant lots are being utilized for food production. People are growing gardens on top of the roofs of their buildings. That wherever you are in this world, you can do something to start growing your own food. And this is a measure of independence. Rather than being so dependent on your employer and your job and everything that they've created has taken away our independence and made us dependent. Growing your own food will help people become independent again, which, after all, is the true spirit of America. I'm going to read just a few more of the Vedic passages in the Vedic perspective to try to help people to understand how we can solve, not only on a personal level to regain our independence, but also on a societal level. This is from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 8, Verse 11, the churning of the milk ocean. This is the purport by Bhaktivedanta Swami, or a part of the purport. Unfortunately, because people in Kali Yuga are manda, all bad, and sumanda mataya, misled by false conceptions of life, they are killing cows in the thousands. Therefore, they are unfortunate in spiritual consciousness, and nature disturbs them in so many ways, especially through incurable diseases like cancer and through frequent wars among nations. As long as human society continues to allow cows to be regularly killed in slaughterhouses, there cannot be any question of peace and prosperity. So we have to understand the importance of what's being said here, that by slaughtering cows in slaughterhouses, which is so cruel, the environment within the slaughterhouse is to create maximum fear within the animal, maximum pain, maximum anxiety. The animal is then releasing all kinds of fear toxins into the bloodstream and into the meat. That meat is then imbibed by people. So it is not only affecting their physical nature in terms of cancer, in terms of heart disease, in terms of every type of malady, it is also affecting their consciousness, because all the fear, all the anxiety, all the different horrible scene that is going on there, without any compassion, without any mercy, because after all, you are what you eat. So if you eat fear, if you eat anxiety, if you eat cruelty, then that will also affect your mind. Just as if we eat pure foodstuffs that are free from cruelty, that are organic, that come from a natural setting, then everyone knows that will affect us positively, and we can even have more peace of mind. So it's not only affecting your physical body, but it's also affecting your subtle consciousness. So here, Bhaktivedanta Swami, and the Vedic perspective, is making the point that as long as this cow killing goes on, that it will affect people not only physically, but also on the subtle platform. And that if you want to stop all the epidemic of cancer, if you want to stop all the epidemic of violence, if you want to stop all the epidemic of psychiatric illnesses, replete with every type of pharmacopoeia, then we must stop slaughtering cows in the slaughterhouse and imbibing the remnant of that satanic sacrifice.